All right, so I'm going to talk about the similarities and differences between Egypt and Mesopotamia. Both are in the Fertile Crescent, and I'm just going to focus on this video. I'm going to focus on location, as environment and location impacts the way their cities develop, and just a little bit about how that impacts their social development, the societal development. Let's start with Mesopotamia. Mesopotamia is, just as it sounds, a mess. So the Tigris and Euphrates River flood, but they don't flood in predictable ways. They flood sometimes rather violently and rather destructively. This leaves a lot of work for farmers and you know, city managers and labor organizers. This also leaves a high demand for labor, which means slavery is going to be important in Mesopotamia if they're going to get the work done to survive. This also relates to some of the other issues that they have in this land. Um, not even getting into the development of their gods and the connection between the gods and their the reality of their environment and how it behaves. I'm just gonna speak about like some of the more natural features in this video. The natural barriers, for example, include the mountains, the Zagros Mountains, in the east and the northeast, but then mostly in the northern part of Mesopotamia, northwestern part of Mesopotamia. Um, it's wide open land, so they're more susceptible to invasions. This means that their armies are developed more aggressively. The Akkadian and the Assyrian armies are definitely known for being aggressive, taking harsh measures to win battles, to siege cities, and to take over territory. Speaking of cities, 80% of the people who live in Mesopotamia live behind city walls. This this is mostly, just like I said, for protection. They don't have a lot of natural barriers. People need to live safely. This also means that women don't have the kind of property rights that they would have had if they lived in the more rural settings on farmland. They pretty much have to protect their family and their homes, work on crafts and things like that, processing and services, while the men are defending the land and spending more time away from home. I mean, my theory is that it had that part, the men away from home versus the women away from home, has a lot more to do with the fact that women are naturally equipped to better take care of children, and nurse babies. I really don't think it has much more to do with that. I don't believe that women are not as strong as men emotionally or physically. I think it has just a little bit more to do with the way we're designed and that sort of natural role. Now let's look at Egypt. Egypt is a little different. It's smooth sailing. The Nile River flows from the south to the north, empties into the Mediterranean Sea, and you can carry yourself downstream, flowing south, flowing north, and then throw up your sail and carry the winds, be carried by the winds back south upstream. This facilitates movement of people, which facilitates movement of ideas and goods. It also makes for a more prosperous economy and a more cohesive kind of kingdom setting from one city to another. But what's really important to remember about Egypt versus Mesopotamia, Egypt has natural barriers. They have desert in the east, desert in the west, and they have the Mediterranean Sea in the north and mountains in the south. So it's not easy. And oh yeah, and by the way, there's several cataracts along the rivers, which makes it harder for large scale movement of people, like armies or navies, for example, up and down that river. So um, Egypt kind of has it made. More people can live in rural areas. They don't have to fear invasion as much as you would in Mesopotamia. Um, and this also lends to more, not equal gender rights, but more rights for women in terms of property ownership, and certainly in terms of, you know, their work that they do, that they provide for the wealth of the kingdoms. So that was just a little bit about these two early civilizations in the Fertile Crescent. Sometimes we think about them as if they're, really similar, but really you don't have to go too far into our themes, much beyond just location, for example, to realize that they do have similarities by river valleys, developed along rivers, but really those rivers are very different, which really impacts the development of these cities in different ways.